I'm going to be working the problems from the May 2019 SAT. This is section 4. And if you would like to work along with me, just pause the video, try the problem, and then see if you have the answer right. So we're going to start with the first one. A car sharing service charges $6 per hour to rent a car plus a $10 fee for insurance. Which of the following gives the total cost in dollars of a rental that lasts T hours? Anytime you see per hour, this is going to be your rate in the problem. And rate is always the slope of a linear equation. So if you have an equation in the form y equals mx plus b, and you see a rate per hour, that's going to be your slope. So the number before the variable in the equation is going to be 6, and the $10 fee for insurance is going to be the constant that is added on every time. It doesn't change. So the solution to this one, I'm going to go fast on the first ones, is this one, where you have 6 is before the variable and 10 is the constant. Just keep in mind when you have the per hour, that's a rate. Rate is the same as slope. That will happen in this section multiple times. Number 2, another really easy one. It's a substitution problem, but make sure you get the easy ones right. They're worth the same amount of points. I'm just going to substitute in y is 11, so where the y is, I'm going to put 11. Where the x is, I'm going to put a 1. And the a is what we're solving for, so we're going to solve it. We're going to leave the a in. I'm going to simplify it by subtracting 1 squared, which is 1 from both sides. So we're going to get 10 equals 1a plus 1a is 2a. Divide by 2, a equals 5. These are easy problems. When you get the solutions back for your test, if you buy the solutions, they will tell you if they're easy or hard and if you missed them. All right, we're going to do a little series of graphs here. It's a scatter plot with a line of best fit going through it. Represents the head lengths in centimeters down here and the body lengths in centimeters up over here of 14 crocodiles. The line of best fit, which is just the line that fits through the data points, is shown. This is also a box plot they're going to be working from that summarizes the lengths of 14 crocodiles. We'll talk about the box plot in another problem. But for right now, they said for a crocodile with a head length of 30 centimeters, which of the following is closest to the body length in centimeters predicted by the line of best fit? So they want you to look on this line right here. The head length is 30, so I'm going to go right here at 30. And I'm going to track it. I would just draw a line right up and see where it hits. And it's going to be right past the 200 line where it goes, not halfway, not even halfway through. So you can expand that to see it better. But if you look up here, we're going to look at the answers on the next page. So hold on a second. So it's slightly above at 30. It's slightly above 200. And here are the answer choices. And the answer that is correct is 215. That one was an easy problem, not too hard. Just take your time on those. Here's another one. The scatter plot above represents the head length. It's exactly the same. So if you recognize that, skim through it, then let's go down to what they're asking for. It says based on the line of best fit. So again, we're going to this. Of the following, which is the best estimate for the increase in predicted body length for every 10 centimeters increase in head length? Now this is kind of the same thing as the rate. If you figured out the slope, you could see the increase. But I'm just going to figure out how much it is from 30 to 40, how much it increased, because that's 10. So from 30 to 40, at 30, we just did this problem, it was 215. I'm just going to write these as ordered pairs. At 40, if you track it up, you can't see it because it's a little small, but when you do the real test, they're a little bit bigger. If you track it up, it's going to be about 300. It's a little estimate. It's an estimated increase. And then let's do one more. Let's do 50. And at 50, if you track it up, it looks like it's about 375. So I'm going to find out for every 10. So when it goes from 30 to 40, it increases 85. That's from 30 to 40, it increases 85. And when I'm going from 40 to 50, it increases 75. So the answer that's best, we have one that's 85, 175. If you want to do another set of points, that's fine, but it ends up being about 75 because 85 isn't closer to 125, it's closer to 75. So that is number 4. Let's hit number 5. Whoops, on the last page, I guess. All right, let's look. Same problem. The scatter plot above represents the head lengths. It's exactly the same. So let's just read what they're asking for. Based on the box plot of the following, which is the best estimate of the median body length in centimeters of the 14 adult crocodiles? Now, when I'm teaching the SAT prep, I have not taught this. So I want to make sure all my students that are taking the class look at this problem and understand what a box plot is. Let's see if I can just expand this a little bit. There we go. So a box plot has the median value right in the middle. This is your median value, which is the middle value. They're just asking us for the median value. This one line right here is the median of from here to here, and this is the median, the middle value from here to here. You're dividing it into quartiles. So they want to know the best estimate for the median. So we're just going to look where this line comes, and it's a little past 300, but it's not 350. And again, the answer choices are on the next page, so hold on one sec. Let's look here. Our answer choices are 260, 300, 320, and 370. Remember, we said it wasn't quite 350, so the best answer choice for this one is going to be 320. Another easy problem. So you can see how many easy ones there are. So you want to really try to get those easy ones, double check them, don't rush through those. I'm just going to show you a shortcut on this one. One way you can do this problem is to solve it for x and then substitute x into this problem. Or there is a little bit of a shortcut. You can take, you'll notice that this 10x minus 14 is a multiple times 2. It's this times 2, so 5 times 2 gives you 10x. 7 times 2 gives you 14. So to get your correct answer, you just take 13 times 2, and you get 26. And again, just look for those patterns. It speeds the problem up, or you can just solve it for x and then substitute it in. And it's not that hard because it would be substituting 4 in. But yeah, it's a little tricky. So yeah, that would be 20 divided by 5 is 4. And then you would have to substitute it in, etc. All right, but you have a calculator in this section, so whatever works for you. Okay, number 7. Where is 7? Okay, 7's a little messy on here, so let me just straighten it up a little bit. There would be a line going down through here. The K is on the right-hand side of the table of values. So in the table above, the ratio of y to x for each ordered pair is a constant. What is the value of k? So if the ratio is a constant, we know that it's in a linear equation. So we want to solve for k. So what I want to do is use a couple of these points and find the slope first. So let's just take these first 2 points here, right here. Let's find the slope. So remember, it's y2, slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I'm going to find the slope between these 2 points. If it's constant, it means it's going to be the same slope between all the points. So let's just do that one first. Y2 would be 12 minus 4 over 3 minus 1, which would be 8 over 2. So our slope is 4. Now I'm going to take 2 more points. I'm just going to take these bottom 2 right here, and I'm going to find k because we know that the slope between these 2 points also is 4 because it tells us that the ratio is constant. So let's do this. We're going to do the y coordinates, so we can do 20k minus 20, subtracted the y coordinates. Now you want to subtract the x coordinates in the same order, so it's going to be 40 minus 5 equals 4. The ratios are constant. So we're going to get k minus 20 over 35 equals 4. Multiply both sides by 35. K minus 20 equals 140. And then I'm just going to add 20 to both sides, and we get K equals 160. And the answers are somewhere. They must be on the next page. There we go. 160 is the answer. And that, again, is an easy problem. Look how many easy problems they give you. Okay, the next one, which of the following expressions is equivalent to this? And so all we need to do is distribute it and see which one it ends up looking like. So I'm going to distribute 2a squared times a, which would be 2a cubed. 2a squared times 3 is 6a squared, and you can see that the answer is D, and again, another easy problem. Number 9. Oh, a chart. Okay, so let's see. I don't have the, again, the answers are on the other page, so I can just tell you what they're going to be here. So for the graph above shows the temperature in a room during the day when the thermostat malfunctioned. For which of the following 2-hour periods was the difference between the maximum and minimum temperature the greatest? So the answers were A was between 1 to 3. B was between 3 to 5. C was 5 to 7. And D was 7 to 9. So we're just going to look at each of those intervals and see which one was the steepest. So from 1 to 3, that just is a little dip. Doesn't look super steep. It went from about 55 down to about 50. So you can just kind of see, you can just subtract it from the beginning to the end and see what the difference is in the Y values. Say from 3 to 5, it goes up pretty high. 3 to 5, it goes up this much. You can look over on the side and see exactly what it is. It looks like about 20. The next one is from 5 to 7. So 5 to 7 would be from here to here. And if you look, that's going to be a little bit less than 20. So no. And then from 7 to 9, you just subtract the values. 7 to 9, it's not as steep. So the steepest one, by subtracting the Y coordinates, is from 3 to 5. And this is actually a medium problem. It's our first medium problem, and it wasn't really that hard. You can almost guess at it just by looking. So number 10. See, there it is, the medium problem. Okay, so we have a function problem. Don't let this notation scare you. It's just a different way. We could have rewritten this as y equals 250 plus 10t. If we wanted to have it in slope-intercept form, we could have written it as y equals 10t, because you can recognize it's a y equals mx plus b kind of thing, right? All right, so don't let that scare you. P sub t just means y. So it says the population of snow leopards in a certain area can be modeled by the function P defined above, where P of t, that's how you say it, P of t is the population t years after 1990, of which of the following is the best interpretation of P of 30 equals 550. So they want to know t years after 1990. Now, do you see how it's substituted in? You could have easily said, if you use this kind of notation right here, it's the same thing. When you have something in these parentheses, it's the same thing as saying t equals whatever's in the parenthesis. Whatever the variable is, it's in this with the slope. So if you had an x in here, if it's y equals mx plus b, whatever is in these parentheses is what you substitute in for the x. Now it's the population after 1990. So we have to add 30 onto 1990 because it's 30 years after 1990. So it's going to be 2020. So we need to figure out which one, it's hard to read my 2020 there, we're going to figure out which one is the best interpretation of what they have there. But basically what we're saying is 30 years after 1990, the population is going to be 550. So let's see if we can find that. Don't let the bolded answers fool you because they're not always the right answer. So the first one is the snow leopard population in the area is predicted to be 30 in the year 2020. Well, no, the population is not going to be 30, right? After 30 years, it's going to be 550. So this is a no. The snow leopard population in this area is predicted to be 30 in the year 2030. Again, it's not. It's 30 years after. The 30 is the time, not how many snow leopards you're going to have. C, the snow leopard population in this area is predicted to be 550 in the year 2020. That's what it is. 30 years after, the population is going to be 550. So it's this one. And this one just has, like, if you added wrong or something. Oh, it's just using the 30 because it wants to throw you off with the 30. All right, let's try a couple more for this video. I was going to do 10, but maybe we could do 12 to break it up a little bit more. Okay, so here we go. Number 11. That was a medium level problem. Number 11, in the xy plane, which of the following changes to the graph of the equation will result of the equation is y equals x squared plus 3 will result in the graph of the equation y equals x squared plus 3 minus 6. Okay, a little tricky. So we're shifting. Now let's look at this one and see what it would look like. Let's see how your graphing goes. That's not a linear equation. If you have a squared term, it's a parabola. Parabolas are in the form y equals x squared. That's like in the standard form of it before you shift it anywhere. So if you just had y equals x squared, it would look like this, something like this. Now, when you just add numbers onto the end, it means it's going to shift it up or down depending if it's adding or subtracting. So this one's going to be shifted from this basic position. It's going to be shifted up 3 units, like such. And so the shape would look like this. All right, so let's see what they have here. They want to know which of the following changes to the graph, so this is our graph, the red one, will result in this graph y equals x squared plus 3 minus 6. Will it be shifted 6 units to the left? Well, if it's not in parentheses like this, there's a lot to talk about in this problem, really. It's going to be shifted up or down. When something's added to the end, it's shifted up or down. So let's just simplify this out just a little bit. And we're going to get y equals x squared, 3 minus 6 would be minus 3. So our new graph, if we were to graph our new graph, let's just do that in another color, it would be the basic form right here, but shifted down 1, 2, 3. So it's going to look like this. Same shape, even though mine don't look the same, but it's shifted. So let's see what happened to our graph from the red graph right here to the blue graph right here. That's what happened to it. So did it shift 6 units to the left? No, it didn't. Didn't move left or right at all. Did it shift 6 units to the right? No. Did it shift up 6 units from this one to this one? No. It shifted 6 units downward, so that's what it looks like. If you have, I don't want to confuse you, but if you have something like this, x minus 2 squared plus 1, this is the vertical shift. That's your vertical shift, but this is the horizontal shift. And remember, we've talked about this. If it's minus, it's going to be actually the opposite when it's in the parentheses. So this one would be this, I call it the mother equation. It's going to be shifted up 1. I'll do this in green over here. So it would be shifted up 1, and it would be going to the right 2 units. 1, 2. So it's going to go from here up 1 and over 2. So this one, the one I just made up, would look like this. Remember, if it's added on to the end, it's your vertical shift, and this is your horizontal shift, and it's always the opposite. Okay, let's try one more problem for this video. Next page. All right, so Tanya earns $13.50 per hour at her part-time job. When she works Z hours, she earns $13.50 Z. You just take 1 hour would be $13.50, 2 hours would be $26.27. dollars. Which of the following expressions gives the amount in dollars Tanya will earn if she works 3 Z hours? So instead of Z, we're just going to take this whole thing times 3. And you can see this one's not very hard, but maybe the wording's tricky. It's just going to be this one right here. You're just going to take 3 instead of Z hours. It's going to be 3 Z hours, so it's going to be this one. So I had to recopy this table when I looked at the problems. It just kind of all meshed together, so I rewrote it over here. So the table above gives the number of United States presidents from 1789 to 2015 whose age at the time they first took office is within the interval listed. Of those presidents who were at least 50 years old when they first took office, what fraction were at least 60 years old? So we're going to figure out the presidents, how many presidents there were at least 50 years old. So we're going to add these together. You have your calculator, you can add it in your head, it's not that much, is 34. And we want to come up with a fraction that we're at least 60. So we're going to put it over the 34. You can kind of look down at your answers to get some idea what they're looking for. So we want it out of 34. 43 is if you added them all up, but they want at least 50 years old, and they don't want all of them. So we would put the 34 in the bottom, and then we'd figure out how many were at least 60, which would be the 7 and the 3, so it would be 10. So the answer to this one is 10 over 34. Not that hard, but this one does come out to be, I do believe, a medium difficult problem. So it's really tricky because they're asking what fraction, and you have to read it really carefully. So it's just a careful read kind of problem. Number 16, they're going to start getting more and more difficult here as we go. Number 14, which of the following graphs in the xy plane could be used to solve the system of equations above? So what I did, I think I just put them in I solved them for y and put them in slope-intercept form so that I could look at it really easily. I mean, you could solve this and find out where they intersect. I didn't do it that way. So I solved this one for y. So I got, I'll just do all the steps. 5y equals negative x plus 5. Y equals negative 1/5 x plus 1. That was one of them. And then I solved the other one. Negative y equals negative 2x minus 4. Y equals 2x plus 4. Like that. So I'm just going to look for those two graphs. This is your y-intercept. So, and this is going to be a positive slope. I'm going to expand this a little bit so that we can see it. You'll be able to see it better on the test when you take it. Mine are just kind of small. So we have one that intersects at 1. So it's a little hard to see. This one looks like it intersects at 1. This one looks like it intersects at 1. And it's a positive slope. Oh, it's a negative slope. Yep, gotta get that right. It's a negative slope. So if it intersects at 1, and it's positive, we can just cross that one right out. It's not going to work. This one's intersecting at 1. It's negative, so we'll hold on to that one for a minute. This one intersects at, ooh, it's so hard to see, at 1, which is a negative slope, so this one's okay for now. And this one does not intersect at 1 at all, so this one's out. So let's go to the second line between these two. The y-intercept is positive 4, and it's a positive slope. So this one intersects at, ooh, this one's down here at negative 4, so that one's out. This one intersects at positive 4. I didn't even need to check the slopes because, except if they're negative or positive, because we're just looking at the y-intercepts. So the answer is C for that one. Okay, you can always try to expand these, zoom in on them. Okay, number 15, they're throwing in a geometry problem for us. Okay, this one says in the figure, that last one was a medium difficulty, by the way. Okay, and this one is a geometry problem. In the figure, AF, BE, and CD segments are parallel. Points B on E and E on A, segment AC, and segment FD are on it respectively. If AB, so I'm going to write these in, and I'm going to zoom in for you. All right, so we have AB is 9. And they're telling us that all these lines are parallel. If you remember anything from geometry, you can just kind of put it in. If their lines are parallel, these are going to be equal ratios on both sides. So we have 9. BC is 18.5. DE is, well, that's the one we need to find. We don't know that one. So I'm just going to put an X there, and FE is 8.5. Because they're parallel, we know that their ratios are we're going to perform a proportion for each side. So we're just going to have 18.5 over 9 equals X over 18.5, or 8.5. So it's the left side equals the right side. And then when you cross multiply, I don't actually have these numbers, I did it in calculator, so you're going to multiply this way and multiply this way, and you're going to divide by 9, and your final answer is not what's bolded, it's actually 17.5. So medium difficulty, cross multiplying this way, divide by 9, and you should get 17.5. So let's move on to number 16. They're all going to be medium and hard from this point on. Well, except for we're going to do the grid ends, and they'll start out easy again. Okay, shrink this back up. So here we go. There's two problems with this band thing. So fortunately, you can just read one of them and just figure out the bottom for what's different. So of all the juniors and seniors who attended a particular high school during the 2014-2015 school year, 149 participated in the clubs listed in the table above. So just note, first of all, these are only juniors and seniors that are in the chart. Each of the 149 students participated in only one of the 4 school clubs listed. The table shows the distribution of the 149 students by class and club participation. The band was composed, even though it's not on this chart, of freshmen, sophomore, juniors, and seniors. If 30% of the students, which means all the students in the band, were juniors, how many students were in the band? This is like a Saxon math problem. So we have, they want to know 30% of the students in the band were junior, how many participated in the band? So we're going to look at the band and juniors because that's what they're talking about, if 30% of the students. So this is, number 18 is 30% of all the students in the school. So 30% of T, we'll call total all the students in the school, is 18. And so we're just going to divide by 0.3, and we get for an answer, let's see, I don't have my answer here. So, and they don't have answers below. Okay, so we take T, and we take 18 divided by 0.3. And you might have to figure that in your calculator. I'm not sure if this is the right answer, and I don't have my calculator with me right now. Hold on. I'm not going to start this video over. I'm just going to get my calculator out. Oh, you guys had to see that. Okay. All right, here we go. We're just going to get 18 divided by 0.3, and it's 60. So the answer is not even on there. It was cut off, but the answer is, she did get this one wrong. This is my daughter's. So D is 60. That's your final answer for that one. Oh, there we go. I did have it. Okay, so it's 60. Let's go down to number 17, which is really similar. Same problem, same 149 juniors and seniors who participated in these different clubs. Okay, let's see what the problem is. Of the number of juniors and seniors in the drama club, these are actually kind of hard problems. 25% who walked to school represented 1/8 of the total number of juniors and seniors who walked to school. How many juniors and seniors walked to school? So, do they talk about walking in this? No, it says of the number of juniors and seniors in the drama club. So let's look up juniors and seniors in the drama club. We have 48. of the 48 juniors and seniors, 25% of them walked to school. So I'm going to take 48 times 25%. And again, I need to find the problem. All right, and that's going to be 12. That's 1/4. I could have done that in my head. Okay, so 12 juniors and seniors out of the 48 walk to school. And those who walk to school represent 1/8 of the total number of juniors and seniors who walk to school. So we are going to just take this times 8, which is the total number, and it's going to be 96. So I don't have those that are cut off, but the answers are 24 and D is 12. So of the number of juniors and seniors in the drama club, the 25% who walk to school represent 1/8 of the total juniors and seniors, because that's only from the drama club. So there's 12 from the drama club that walk to school. That's 1/8 of the total junior and seniors. So I took it times 8, gives you the total number of junior and seniors who walk to school. So the answer is 96. All right, let's do another one. Number 18. I'll be going a little bit slower as they get harder. Okay, number 18. Lots of reading in this section. A bag containing 10,000 beads of assorted colors is purchased from a craft store. To estimate the percent of red beads in the bag, a sample of beads is selected at random. The percent of red beads in the bag was estimated to be 15% with an associated margin of error of 2%. If R is the actual number of red beans in the bag, which is the most plausible? Okay, we're looking for a range here. We have a 2% margin of error. So the first thing I did was it said that the number of red beads was estimated to be 15%. So I just found out 15%. So I did 15% of 10,000, which ends up being 1,500. And then I did the little margin of error. So I did 2% less, which would be 13% times 10,000. And you can kind of see where we're going here. And then I did 2% more, which would be 17%. And that one would be 1,700. So you can see that this one is the middle one. With the margin of error, it's going to be between 13,000 and 1,300 and 1,700. Okay, that was a medium difficulty. Let's go down to number 9. This chart too is a little bit messed up. The line, it should look like, let me just redraw the table of values. So now remember, f of x is the same as y. I just want you to know that because a lot of my students who took this test missed a lot of the function problems because we're not used to function problems in Saxon Math, if you use Saxon Math. So let's just do this. 0, it tells us it's a linear function, which is important because you know it's going to be in the form y equals mx plus b. This is c. 2, this is, wait. This is why I'm rewriting. It's really hard to understand here. It's 1, 2c. Because the line didn't show up, it's hard to see. 2, and this is going to be 3c. All right, for the linear function f, the table above gives some values of x and their corresponding f of x or y values, where c is a constant. Which of the following equation defines f? Now, because it says it's a linear function, we can find the slope and then figure out which one, we could just find the b, we would use mx plus b, and we need to find b, and we need to find the slope. We can find the slope, we've done the slope problem a few back. Let's just subtract the y coordinates, so it's going to be 2c minus c over 1 minus 0, which is 1. So your slope is going to be c over 1, which is going to be your slope. All right, so let's look. Some of these have c as the slope. This one does not have c as the slope. It has 1 as the slope. This one has 1 as the slope. See, we're already narrowing it down before we did anything. Actually, that's all we had to do because this is 3c as the slope. That's wrong. So this is the correct answer. If you wanted to put c back in with one of the points and find b, you could do that, but you didn't even need to do that. I did do this. I picked a point. I picked this point. I put the y in as c. The slope is c, right? We just found that out. X is 0, and we get plus b. So the constant value is c, so that makes sense on that one right there. Okay, please feel free to watch any of these over again or try them yourselves before you watch what I do. Okay, that was a medium difficult problem. Number 20. This one is, I have the answers on the next page apparently. This is a medium difficult problem too. It's not that hard though. If x is a solution to the given equation, which of the following is a possible value of x plus 5? So I solved this for x. And then we're going to put whatever we've got for x in for x to get x plus 5. So how do we solve this? Well, we're looking at it's going to be quadratic because you have an x squared term. If it's quadratic, you have to set it equal to 0. So maybe this is a difficult algebra problem. So I'm going to cross multiply. I'm going to multiply 4 times this, and then the 1 will be on the top. So we're going to get 1 equals 4x squared plus 40x plus 100. And it's quadratic, which means you have to set it equal to 0 before you solve it. 4x squared, forgot my x right there, plus 40x plus 99. I then factored it. So if you have trouble factoring, you could do the quadratic formula, but always try factoring it first. And I just did 2x and 2x, and then we're 99. I did 11. I had to play around with this a little bit. And 9. So your outer, if you did 22 plus 18 does give you 40. So you're going to get a plus and a plus. And you set each of these factors equal to 0. Now I see why this was a medium level problem. And you solve these little baby equations, so you get x equals negative 9 halves and x equals negative 9 halves and 11 halves, negative 11 halves. Okay, that's not the final answer, and guess what? They have these as some of your answers so that you mess up. That's terrible, isn't it? Okay, so those are your 2 answers, but now we have to add on to it 5. So since they're both with denominators of 2, I made my 5 a 10 over 2. And so I added negative 9 halves plus 10 over 2 is going to be 1 half. And then negative 11 halves and 10 over 2 is going to be negative 1 half. And then we have to go look at our answers, which are on another page, I think. Yeah, hold on. So here are our answers. Remember, we got 2 answers. We got negative 1 half and positive 1 half. So the correct answer is positive 1 half. Do you see how they have the 9 halves and the 11 halves? Just to throw you off a little bit. So the answer to that one is 1 half. Okay, let's keep going. Number 21. The graph of a line in the xy plane has a positive slope and intersects the y-axis at a point that has a negative y coordinate. Which of the following could be an equation of the line? So they want us a graph. Basically what they're saying is we want a graph that has a point, has a negative y coordinate. So we're going to have down here in the xy plane has a positive slope and intersects at a negative y coordinate. So it's going to be down here and it's going to have a positive slope. So your equation is going to look like this. So we're going to look for something with the y-intercept at a negative value. We don't know what it is. We don't know how many of these are. So we need a negative y value and we need a positive slope. So what I did was I just started solving these, putting them in y equals mx plus b form. So we get 2y equals 3x minus 5. I just moved the 3x, and then I'm going to divide by 2. So y equals 3 halves x minus 5 halves. And look at that. We have a positive slope. This is positive, and a negative y-intercept. So I didn't do any more, but you could try more, but they won't work. So this is your solution. Let's just try one to show you how it won't work. Let's do the last one. 2y equals negative 3x plus 5. And look at that. When you divide by 2, we're going to get a negative slope. So this one would be out. And the same thing's going to happen, and this would be a positive too. So the same thing would happen if you would solve any of these. So draw yourself a little picture to see what it would look like, and then try to find the equation that would fit it. Okay, 22. Let's see how many are on this before the grid ends. All right, let's just do 22, and then I'll do another video for the next group. So this one says the revenue in dollars. It gives you a function equation again. And remember, don't let that scare you. This is just y. The revenue f of x in dollars that a company receives from the sales of the product is given by the function f above, where x is the unit price in dollars of the product. The graph y equals f of x in the xy plane intersects the x-axis at 0 and a. What does the a represent? Okay, so this is just telling you, let's make a graph of this. So I'm going to make a quick little graph. A little bit harder problem. Now, this is still a medium difficulty problem. Wait, hold on. Maybe it's not. No, this is a hard problem. Okay. So this one tells us, we know it's a parabola, right? Because you have an x squared term, it's quadratic. If the value in front of the x squared term is negative, you know it's going to be a sad parabola. So this parabola is going to open downward. It tells us that the graph intersects the x-axis at 0, and it's going to intersect somewhere out here at a. So we're going to have some sort of graph, oops, I missed it, that goes like this. All right, there's 0, my a got smushed. That's what your graph's going to look like. Let's see what else they tell us. X is where x is the unit price. So this is the unit price. So you can label your graphs, and it tells you that the revenue is f of x. Now remember, this is y is f of x. So this line is going to be your revenue, how much money you make. I'll just do revenue, how much money you're going to make. So what does the A represent? Well, the A, I have the answers on the other page. So basically, whatever A is at that point, they made no money. This is 0. Where A intersects the x-axis, the coordinate of this point would be A, 0. Since the y-coordinate, or the f of x, is the dollars, at A, you make $0. So let's just look at the answer. Answer choices. A says the revenue in dollars when the unit price of the product is 0. That is not true. The unit price is A. The unit price in dollars of the product that will result in maximum revenue. No, it's not going to be maximum. The unit price in dollars of the product that will result in a revenue of 0. Ding, 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 ding. That's it. And the maximum revenue in dollars that the company can make. Let's just look at that graph one more time before we go. This is the graph. It says that what does A represent? If it's crossing the x-axis, the point of intersection is A0. This is the unit price. When they charge a certain amount, maybe they charge too much. They don't make any money. No one buys it when the unit price is too high. Okay, this one is level of difficulty is hard. It's not really that hard, but it's just hard knowing how to start it, I guess. So it says the graph of ax plus ky equals 6 is a line in the xy plane where a and k are constants. If the line contains the points -2, -6, and 0, -3, what's the value of k? Now, we have the xy values right here. This first point we'll call x1, y1, and the second point we'll call x2, y2. We have two unknowns, which would be a and k, and so you need as many equations as you have unknowns. So I'm going to do two equations, and you're going to see that it gets a little bit simpler than what you think, but let's just plug it in. So I'm going to put -2 in for x. Instead of saying a times -2, I'm going to say -2x. Then I'm going to put the -6 in where the y is, so we're going to say -6. This should be an a, this should be a k. Let me just make that a little bit neater. So we substituted in for the x, so the a is still in there, minus 6k equals 6. Now I'm going to put the second point in for x and y, so 0 times a would be 0, right? So we put 0a. Then we have the -3 in for the y, so we're going to have -3k equals 6. Now, makes it a little bit easier. If this was not a 0, we would have to multiply maybe by -2 and eliminate the k's. But they're asking what's the value of the k, so we don't necessarily want to eliminate the k. We want to solve for the k. But if you'll notice here that this is actually gone because it's 0a, and we can solve this equation right here for k, and we're going to get k equals -2. So it wasn't as hard as it initially looked. You could have solved this, you could even solve this for a and then substitute back in to get k, but if you noticed, it was actually easier than you think. All right, number 24. This is a exponential decay problem. Let's just read it. From 2005 through 2014, the number of music CDs sold in the United States declined each year by approximately 15% of the number sold the preceding year. In 2005, approximately 6 million CDs were sold in the United States. Of the following, which best models see the number of millions of CDs sold in the United States after T years after 2005? They assume that you know this equation. A equals principal or starting value, depends what you're talking about, plus or minus the rate at, to the T power, which would be the time power. So we're trying to figure out what it's going to be, A after the certain amount of time. So we know the starting amount. It says in 2005, approximately 60 million CDs were sold. So we're going to start with 60 million. It's a decay. We're going down. So we're going to use the subtracting part. We're going to subtract the rate. So it's going to be minus 0.15. And the time, we don't know the number of years. So it's in the, you'll notice in the answers, the T is in there. And look, they have the 600 for all of these. They're just basically wanting to know if you know it's a decay or an increase. So right here it says declined. Because it says declined, I'm going to use the negative. So we're going to get 600, and it's going to be 0.85 to the T power. And that one wasn't bad. If you would have did the addition, you would have got this one. This is the answer. If you would have, what's the difference between these two? This one is if you just did 15% in this whole thing, but it's always 1 plus or minus. Make sure you put the percentage into a decimal. Sometimes they'll say something like 1.5%, thinking they'd trick you, but make sure you move it over 2 places and turn it into a decimal before you put it in this formula. 24. Okay, 25. So this one says, as people I know, kids I taught took this SAT, they said there were a lot of function problems on it. So yeah, you're seeing them. So the function g above models the growth rate of a certain plant in millimeters per day in terms of watering time, T, in minutes per day. What is the meaning of 5, g of 5.51 in this context? Okay, so basically they're saying when you make your y value 5.51, your x value is also going to be 5.51. So what is the x value? It's actually t, because t is the variable that's in the equation. So when you put a T in, you're going to get out something. Let's just read this again. So you're putting in your T, which is 5.51 is what you're putting in there. So they're basically saying if you put 5.51 in, you're going to get 5.51 out. So the function, we read that. So the watering time of 5.51 minutes a day results in a plant that grows 5.51 millimeters per day. A little bit tricky. You're getting out your Y value. Your Y value is this. And it's basically saying if you put 5.51 in, you're going to get 5.51 out. A little tricky. All right, let's just go on to the next one. 26. This one is kind of weird. A psychologist designed and conducted a study to determine whether playing a certain educational game increases middle school students' accuracy in adding fractions. For the study, the psychologist chose a random sample. We got a random sample of 35 students from all of the students at one middle school in a large city. The psychologist found that the students who played the game showed significant improvement in accuracy when adding fractions. What is the largest group to which the results of the study can be generalized? Now, the 35 students in the sample, because it's a sample, we can generalize out of that. We could take whatever we got in the sample and generalize that. So that wouldn't be high enough. All students at the school. Well, that is true because it's at one school. You can't do in the whole city because it's only the 35 students from the school, and all students in the city. That would be too big because we're not taking a sample of the city. We're only taking a sample in the middle school. So this one is all students at the school. Believe it or not, the difficulty level on this one is hard. And you just read these kind of problems very, very carefully. All right, 27. A manufacturer determined that a right cylindrical container with a height that is 4 inches longer than the radius offered the optimal number of containers to be displayed on a shelf. Which of the following expresses the volume in cubic inches of such containers, where R is the radius in inches? Okay, this is one where the answer is on the next page. So we're going to have to turn the page to look for the answers. But anytime there's a problem like this, I like to draw it. A cylindrical container. So here we go. It's my great drawing. And it tells us this is the radius, right? A height that's 4 inches longer than the radius. So this is the radius. So the height is going to be the radius plus 4. I'm going to use the volume equation, which says volume equals pi r squared h. It's one you need to know, which is just the area of a circle times the height. I'm just going to plug these things in. So volume equals pi radius squared times r plus 4. And if we distribute this through, it's going to be volume equals pi r cubed plus 4 pi r squared. And if you have the answers in front of you, it makes it just a little bit easier. So you can just see I added the 4 to the height, to the radius, and that they said that was the height. And then I put the height, r plus 4, into for h. The radius is just r, and then I just distributed it. So let's turn the page here and get the answer choices. And it ends up being choice D. Remember, I had the cube because I distributed it through, and that would also make that one squared. So go back and look at that if you need to. All right, another function problem. For the function f of 3x equals x minus 3 for all values of x, what is the value of f of 6? Well, if we put 6 in to this equation, if you just put 6 in where the x is, you would get 0, which is not the right answer, by the way. We have a 3x here. So we know that 3x has to equal 6. And we would get x actually equals 2, because they're telling us if 6 was in here, well, we already have 3 times whatever is going to equal 6. So now I'm going to put the 2 in where the x is. See, these are just a little tricky. That's why the difficulty is hard. It's not really hard. It's just tricky hard. So, oops, it should be 6. I wrote the answer down. So the answer is -4. So just watch that little trick there. They're saying f of x, so f of 3x has to equal f of 6. And so I had to set these two parts equal to figure out what x is to know what to put in for x. A little tricky. Okay, 29. In the system of equations below, a and c are constants. That means they don't change. Now, these are the systems of equations, the system that they're giving us. In the system of equations, if the system of equations has an infinite number of solutions, what is the value of A? Now, you have to know some things about this. If it has an infinite number of solutions, it means that the lines are going to be parallel. The slopes are going to be equal to each other. You could solve that one for y and set the slopes equal to each other. For some reason, I didn't do that. But if it has an infinite number, oh, never mind. I was saying it wrong. If they're parallel, the slopes are going to be the same. This one says that would be no solutions. Infinite number of solutions means the lines have to be exactly the same. So it would be this line, and then it would be another line on top of it, and this line. If it has an infinite number of solutions, it means the lines are exactly the same. If, on the other hand, it said that the lines are parallel, that would mean that there was no solutions, so the slopes would be the same. So this one, they're exact same lines. So it's basically saying that the A's have to be the same, and the B's have to be the same, and the C's don't have to be the same. The C's actually have to be the same. They all have to be the same. So the only thing that we have here, this is another one, that's why this one's hard. You do have the 1 in front of the y. They don't put that right out there, but there's a 1 in front of that y. So since these two have to be exactly the same, we have to say, what do we have to do to this 1 to make it into a third? So we would have to divide by 3. Or if we multiply this by 3, you would get 1. So basically what we're doing is if we multiply this whole equation by 3, we would get this equation. It would make these two the same. So let me just review this again. Y, we have 1y has to be the same, equal 1/3 y. So we would need to multiply this by 3 in order to make it into the 1. So I'm going to multiply this whole thing by 3. And so we're going to get 3/2 x plus y equals 1/2. You don't need to do all that because they just want to know what's the value of A. So it's going to be 3/2. Kind of tricky. It was a little bit hard to explain. So they kind of left this one thing known so that we could figure out what you did to this equation to get that equation, because the equations have to be multiples of each other. So if the equations are multiples of each other the whole way through, then they're the same line. All right, think about that for a little bit. All right, let's go on to the next one. Here are the answers, and remember we got 3/2. Okay, another hard one. There's a lot of hard ones on this test. I can see why people struggled with it. Difficulty hard again. A research surveyed 200 adults selected at random from the city of Aldley, and 300 selected at random from the suburbs of Aldley. Each person surveyed was asked whether he or she owns a car. Some of the results are shown in the partially completed table. The researchers found that an adult surveyed in the suburbs of Aldley is twice as likely to own a car as an adult surveyed in the city of Aldley. Of the following, which could be a value of x? So this is what I did. I figured out the ratio between the city people and the suburb people. So the ratio would be 200 to 300 or 2 to 3. Then I found the missing parts. So 2 over 3 is equal to 80 over x. And I cross-multiplied and found that 2x equals 240 and x equals 120. So that would be number of people that own a car is 120. The answer is 120 down there, but they said it's twice as likely. So you have to take it times 2. which makes this a hard problem because I bet most people would put 120. Yeah, so if it's going to be twice as many people, if there's the number of people is 120, so twice as many would be 240. All right, I think that one's kind of hard. Okay, let's go on to 31. This one is a medium problem because it's a grid-in. Usually the grid-ins start out easy and build up to hard, but on this particular test, the first grid-in problem, actually, I didn't leave enough space for these. The first grid-in problem is a medium. So just know when you hit the grid-ins again in section 4, when you hit them in section 4, they're going to start easier again. Not easy, but easier. Pure beeswax has a density of 0.5555 ounce per cubic inch. So the density is 0.555 ounce per inches cubed. An online company sells pure beeswax at a price of $8 per ounce. What is the selling price in dollars per cubic inch for pure beeswax purchased from this company? And disregard the dollar sign. So this one is $8 per ounce. And so all you need to do is take it times the ounces, take it times 8, and you're going to get 4.44, and then it would be ounces per cubic inch, because they wanted to know what the dollars per cubic inch, and these are the dollars right here. This is the ounces per cubic inch, and they want to know the dollars per cubic inch. So we multiply it times the dollar, and we get the dollar amount. Dollars were in the numerator because it wants dollars per cubic inch. That's why I multiplied and didn't divide when I wasn't sure which way to do it. Okay, tricky. All right, 32 is also a medium problem. The list of numbers above is what fraction of the sum of the 5 numbers? So first thing I did was I added up the 5 numbers. So if we add these all up, it's going to be 28. And then we had to find the mean. So the mean is just the numbers added up divided by 5 numbers. So it ends up being, you might want to use, since I didn't use my calculator for some reason, but it's 5 3/5 is what the mean is. So this is the mean. And so they want to know what is the mean of the list of numbers. Now, if we translate this sentence into an algebraic equation, which is one way to do it, it says the mean, which is 5. Well, I'm going to translate this into 28/5. So that's the mean. The mean of the list of numbers means equals what fraction, that's our x, of the sum of 5 numbers, which is 28, right? And so this is of means times. So then I'm going to divide both sides by 28, which is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. And so we're going to get x equals 1/5. All right, let's hit another one. The equation right here defines a circle in the xy plane. What is the radius? Now, if you know the formula, which is x minus h quantity squared plus y minus k quantity squared equals radius squared, you can look at the equation. I can look at this and find that the center is going to be -6, -3. And the radius is the square root of this number right here, so your radius is going to be 11. They didn't ask for the center, just the radius, so I would consider this an easy problem. They considered this one to be hard, because a lot of kids might not have known that, so that's why it's a hard problem. All right, I only have a couple more minutes before I have to leave to go somewhere, so let's see how many I can get done. 33. A baker is gathering the ingredients required to make 15 batches of oatmeal cookies and 1 cake. The cake will require 1/4 bag of flour. The baker needs a total of more than 3 but less than 4 bags of flour. What is one possible value for the fraction of 1 bag of flour required for each batch of cookies? Okay, I left no room to do this problem, but we know that the flour needs to be somewhere between 3 and 4 bags. So I set that up. but we're going to subtract off a quarter for the cake. So I'm subtracting off a quarter cup of flour. So we know it has to be between, if I subtract 1/4 from, this would be 12/4, we're going to get 11/4. I'm pretty sure I took this whole test without a calculator. That's why it's all in these fractions. So this one would be 12/4 minus 4/4, or 16/4 minus 4/4 would be 15/4. So that's how much flour that you need for the oatmeal cookies, but there's 15 batches of them, so I have to divide them by 15 to get our final answer. So I'm going to divide both sides by 15, and this one's going to be 11 over 60 is less than x is less than 1/4. So you just need to pick a number somewhere between 1/4 and 11/60. So, you could pick, I don't know, 1/8. Oh, wait, 11/60, yeah. So you could pick something like 1/8, I think. I would use a calculator and get the decimal and then pick a decimal in between there. Okay, next one, 35. The histogram summarizes the distribution of data of a data set composed of 50 integers. The first bar represents the numbers of integers that are at least 0 but less than 5. The second bar represents the number of integers that are at least 5 but less than 10. And so on. What's a possible value for the median of the set? So what I did was I figured out how much each of these bars were and figured out what the frequency was. So I went through and I added all these up. So I added up 12 plus 9 plus 9 plus, this is 2, I just did the top line. I'm trying to hurry here. So it added up to, let me find where I added these up to. It added up to a total of 50. So if you added all these up, it was 50. Then I divided it in half. And so we have to know that the median is the number right in the middle. So I divided it in half. So the middle one would be 25. So 25 of the numbers would be less and 25 greater. I'm just going to show you this real quick. This is 12, 9, and 9. If I added those up, we're going to get 18 plus 9. So it's going to be somewhere between, right in here, between 10 and 15. So the answers could be 10 through 14 would be the answers that you could pick, because 25 would be below the median and 25 above the median. So if I looked here, it's going to be 12, this is 18, and 12 is 30, right? So it has to be somewhere between 10 and 14 in order to get half of them. We can't take up to 15 because we only can do up to 25 of them, and this is 30. So it's going to be, yeah, if we got up to here, it would be too many. So 9 plus 12 is 21, and then we can use 4 more. So think about that one a little bit too. Okay, sorry that I'm rushing now. Number 36, 3 more. I can do it. So in the equation above, oh, did I pick an answer for this? The answer could be anything. It could be 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And once it hits 15, it crosses over too many. Okay, this one, these are kind of my favorite, but they're hard. That last one was considered hard too. So in the equation above, the kinetic energy K of a 200-gram object is given in terms of speed V if the equation is rewritten in the form V equals A square root of K, where A is a positive constant. What is the value of A? So this is saying solve for V in terms of the other variables. So I'm going to solve this for V, cross multiply. So I'm going to get 2K equals 200 V squared. We're solving it for V, so I'm going to divide both sides by 200. I'm just going to flip it around a little bit. I'm going to put V squared here equals K over 100. And then I need V by itself, so I'm going to take the square root of both sides. So I'm going to get V, square root of V squared is V, square root of K over 10, right? And so they want to know what the A is, the value in front of the K. Well, it's going to be 1 over 10. So the answer is going to be 1/10. And you can also write it in decimal form, 1/10. Okay, Oddly enough, number 37, the next last problem, is an easy problem. It says the line graph above shows the population in thousands of people living in Alaska every 10 years from 1900 to 2000. What is the population of Alaska in thousands in 1990? So you're just going to track it up. I'm going to go right in between here and look, it's right there, 550. So it's pretty simple. The answer is just 550. And the last problem, it says the line shows the population in thousands of people living in Alaska every 10 years from 1990 to 2000. The ratio of the population from 1980 to the population in 1970 can be written as A to 1. What is the value of A? So we're going to first do the ratio of the population from 1990, 1980 to 1970, which would be 402. If you track it up, like 1980 over 1970, so it would be 402. They have these nice little numbers there, so it's not so hard. And 1970 would be right in the middle, so it's 300 equals the ratio of A over 1. And so we can see that the value of A is going to be this whole thing, right? Because if you cross multiply, you don't need to do that. You can just see that A equals 402 over 300. And if you put that into a decimal, it's going to be 1.34. You could also reduce it to 67 over 50, but that's a lot harder. Just put it in the decimal, and that's your final answer. So that concludes the May 2019 SAT Section 4.